Not a good look.
Well, it's going to have to be a good look because hello. And welcome to the Philadelphia Sports Podcast, a weekly take on Philly sports through the lens of husbands, fathers, and of course, Philly sports fans. Now, before we start tonight's episode, as always, I want to ask that you please hit the notification button and the subscription button. The subscription button keeps you connected to our community, and the notification button will notify you anytime one of our episodes are airing, because we would love to have you join us. We will be dropping the link in the comment section. All we ask is that you cam up, because tonight will be a show. Now, if you enjoyed the episode as you're watching, we ask that you go ahead and hit the like button so that we can conquer good old algorithm. And so, Malik, as I drop the link in the comment section, let me just ask, man, how are you doing, my brother?
Hey, man, I am basking in the glow. I'm also sitting on the floor right now, but I am basking in the glow of, just like everybody else, man, of a Super Bowl 59 win, man. I feel good. I feel real good. It's incredible. It's incredible to say. It's incredible to feel. How are you?
Likewise. I mean, it's funny. You kind of just mentioned it. I think we can still kind of, get into the show with, and I'll just let the banner, just kind of give it some time to sit there and sit and marinate a bit. We brought the Lombardi Trophy home again. Like the Eagles did it, and we did it in a way that, to your point, I feel good right now. It's interesting. We have Valentine's Day coming up this weekend, and so I have some special plans there. And then we find out the parade is on Friday.
Are your plans free? Because mine are definitely free.
My plans for Valentine's Day?
Yes.
All I am saying is that the parade is now also on Friday.
Okay.
Cool. That was not part of the original consideration when sort of trying to map out how that day will go.
I feel like if your significant other gives you any hard time about being at the parade, or doesn't automatically say, hey, look, I know it's Valentine's Day, we should be at the parade, that's not the person for you. Like, that's not the person for you. I really believe that. Like what are you doing? Like, I don't love you that much. We're out.
That's so hilarious as we're 9 years in. But no, to your point, we did, since we had a Super Bowl 7 years ago, I kind of figure out where we stood on the issue then,
Right.
But with that said, I'm looking forward to this weekend.
I'm not speaking about Sam. I'm not speaking about Sam specifically.
Oh, no. Likewise, right. But, just for the record, folks. With that said, I am so looking forward to this weekend. Just in terms of the energy in the city, like the energy in the city when the Eagles win the bowl.
Crazy.
And to do it the way we did it. And here's what's weird. And I have to be honest with the interwebs, as I like to refer to everyone out there. I am feeling my age a bit, because the way I celebrated the 2017 win and the way I am observing the celebration of the 2025 win.
That's an interesting way of putting it. Observing, all right.
I'm like, wow, there's some real youthful energy in the streets that I have to accept is a generation I'm not a part of. So they're out there, and like before, I felt more connected to the people outside in terms of just my own, you know what I'm saying? This time it's like, listen, I'll lock arms with you, but I understand uniquely I'm vibing with folks that I'm not the youngest man in the room anymore.
Nah, so being there, being in New Orleans, and then being in the game, right? Like, you could tell, like, there was a strange energy, right? Like, everybody was on 1,000 before. Everybody was fired up. Everyone was ready to go. Stadium hits, game starts, and the AJ ticky-tack call early in the game or whatever it is, and we proceed past that and we score, and it's right away like Cooper DeJean and 17-0, whatever it is, and like there's an energy that was there where like, it's just really, it would phase. It's kind of to your point about like age, right? Like it went in phases. Like we're really high, we're really amped. And then it was like, oh my God, keep going. And then it was like, is this really going to happen? And then at some point in time, it was like, yo, come on, man, let's end this game. Like, let's just. I'm tired. Like, I've already celebrated in the first 3 quarters. Like, let's get to the zeros on the clock. Not that you were tired of the game, but like I was so high. We were so high so early for so long that at some point in time, it was like, yo, like this almost feels anticlimactic because we beat y'all down this way. Not that I'm complaining at all. But we celebrated for the first 45 minutes, really. And the last quarter was like, yo, Kenny Pickett's here. All right, man. Like, let's come on. Let's who else is coming on the field? Like, let's keep it pushing. And so
Mm,
the energy
brother,
kind of ebbed and flowed, man. It was crazy. But all in all, man, I get it. Like, yo, I'm not climbing poles anymore, Sam. I'm not. I'm not. You know what I mean? Like the grease is a deterrent. You know what I
it's
mean?
like my book bag will probably have like some sort of like anything for like a first aid component, like I don't know. It might who knows what I would actually have in the bag if I were like, out there. I remember last time it was just full of, bruise it was a
Years ago.
nice we were there for the day. I walked all the way up and down Broad Street, man. So I am looking forward to what this weekend holds. And to your point, the way we won that game, I think two things are what really jumped out to me. One, I've never seen a game where a quarterback could not step up to throw a football. And I watched the game in two different locations.
Mm-hmm.
And in the second
Two different
half,
locations.
yeah, because I had to kind of keep the you feel like when you watch a game as an Eagles fan, there are times where it's like you
Mm-hmm.
want to whatever you did the previous game that you felt was part
Well,
of the reasons that they won. You
right.
want to kind of keep that thing going. And for me, it was being around the kids,
Okay.
right? So I was in the house around the kids. Like they weren't really tied to the TV, but I could hear them when I got excited. They would run in all excited,
Right.
that
Right.
kind
Right.
of
Right.
feel. Did that for the first half. Then it's like, all right, I need to find people that are a little bit more my age that I can really, enjoy the second half of the win because I already, at this point, it's a 24-0, and I'm just thinking, let me just quickly get from A to B so I can maybe still salvage some of this halftime show, and then see what the second half is going to hold. Again, with the thought that if things turn around, I will quickly get back in my car and come back home.
Where did you go?
I ended up going to Stacy's, man.
Okay.
So it was, and here's the funny part about Philadelphia, folks. No one was on the road at halftime.
Oh, I don't believe. I believe
No
that. I
one
don't
was.
doubt that at all.
We could have been in small town America, bro.
Yeah.
Nobody was outside. It was a straight shot
You probably
to
hit
their
every
house
light.
because
You ain't had to worry about
no one
slowing
was
down.
outside.
Yeah.
You would thought it was like maybe 4 o'clock in the morning, maybe whatever the deadest hour is. That was what it was symbolic of. So everyone was glued to the TV, and my goodness, did this city need it? Did this city need it?
Man, listen,
Did this city need it?
it feels incredible. We talked about it last week that this was a chance for them to kind of brand themselves, to kind of separate themselves a little bit. 3 Super Bowl appearances, 2 wins since 2017. Um, you know, I hear people talking about the dynasty of it all and what they're going to do next year. And before I even get my mind to that point, I've already got to I want to make sure that we kind of celebrate and really absorb what happened because they were 2-2. And if not for the bye week, and if not for a Nick Sirianni shouting match with a sideline fan, you know what I mean? Like, realistically, this might not have come out this way, right? If not for whatever book that AJ Brown was reading to keep himself calm, if not for Jalen Hurts really kind of buying in and accepting, like, yo, I don't need to be David Ruffin. Otis sometimes is enough, right? Like, you can still be the main guy and do the main thing, but in your main role. And so he was effective and was able to buy in, and that permeated throughout. And when you hear these dudes quoting, and when you hear these guys rocking for the like, CJ's always talking about Sirianni. Landon Dickerson always talking about Sirianni. Mailata was like, yo, he's one of the best men I know. Are you serious? Like, they have come a long way. So before I'm ready to get beyond all that, I kind of want to just at least enjoy this through the parade. And then I'll start
Yeah.
worrying about like what we're going to resign and what are we going to do for the draft? Who's going to be a free agent? Like I'm not there yet. I'm definitely not there yet. I don't want to
Understood.
marginalize. I don't want to shrink what they did at all.
Listen, I'm glad you did that. So we're gonna kill the next segment. But let me tell you something. It was as I predicted in our last show. I knew that the Eagles were going to win because it just made sense that we would be the team that ends the last two dynasties. The last two football dynasties, both your Patriots and your Kansas City Chiefs, were dismantled by your Eagles. Now, I say dismantled in terms of the Patriots because, I believe Tom went on right after that. He didn't win again in New England after that loss. Like
he moved on.
Yeah, he moved on, right? And so that was one reality. And then when with the Chiefs, all of a sudden their whole season comes into a different focus because they had a lot of close wins all year long where the game could have went one other way, right? Like one was like a block field goal, like things that are very rare, and all of a sudden it just like turned in their favor.
Yep.
Maybe this team doesn't make the playoffs. Then maybe this game makes more sense, right? And so I say all that to say that this could be the beginning of the end of what we knew of the dominance of the Kansas City Chiefs. So I just think that the Eagles have established themselves as the big boys on the block. They have a young team, the youngest defense, and I think that was probably the most shocking component of the game, in my opinion. I knew our defense had played well. I was looking forward to seeing how we were going to create the turnovers because we've done it every single game. And so it just begs to say that we will generate a turnover. What does it look like against the best quarterback in the league? But the way our defense and our front four got home and dominated and played with such discipline, they never let Patrick be Patrick. And Patrick becomes special when you press him. It's like he's a pick your poison quarterback. He's one of those guys where if you leave him in the pocket, he'll hurt you. But once he's outside the pocket, it's over. It's lights out. And we didn't allow either. And he became pitter pat in the pocket. Yeah. I think anytime you get any quarterback in that position, they're never who we think they are.
Well, I'll say this. I talking about who we think they are is a good way to kind of get into it, right? I think even though the Chiefs had the referees and luck and one-score games and all of these funky outcomes that resulted in them getting to this point, being the number one seed, being back in the AFC Championship, winning it, and then getting the Super Bowl, right? The Eagles were that much better, right? Like we could say luck and all of that. Like I can't imagine that you go through 17 games in the regular season lucky, right? Because at some point in time last year, if you recall, there was a lot of conversations about the Eagles are pulling these games out, haven't really played their best one. They look like they might be lucky, right? The drop against Kansas City. There were different moments last season where we were like the Eagles' success is equated to luck, and we saw that luck ran out. That luck wasn't luck for Kansas City. And by saying it was luck for Kansas City is to diminish, like, Chris Jones is that dude, right? Andy Reid is that dude. Spagnuolo had been that dude. Patrick Mahomes is definitely that dude. The Eagles were just that much better than those dudes. Yeah. That's really what it was. And I really believe, like, listen, we beat Baltimore. It was never really a game of Baltimore. We beat Kansas City. We saw what that game was. And honestly, if you probably played anybody from the AFC, I don't think it would have been much different. I really don't.
And you know why I believe you? Because the reason Josh Allen. The reason Josh Allen got the MVP in Buffalo is because he doesn't have a team, right? Like that's what they gave him so much credit for, is because that team isn't littered with Pro Bowlers and all pros. Well, that's going to be a problem against the Eagles. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. Like the scheme is not going to win that game. You don't have the dudes, because all we do is line up and play football. Therein lies the rub. And so, like I told the world before, again, you're hearing it first, folks. The Philadelphia Eagles are pre-portal SEC. Alabama, Georgia, to be specific. Yeah. Alabama on offense, Georgia on defense.
Yeah.
And we are just the bigger and better players that were always the bigger and better players. And now you're putting ourselves in a position where the rest of the league is on notice that you can't out-scheme us. And like, as we just said, all the teams in the AFC that we beat, even though I will say this much, the game against the Ravens, I would have loved to see a rematch there, because I think Lamar would have been a lot more special with his legs, and I would have liked to see how he held up. in that matchup.
Yeah, but even with that though, even with that, I don't think they were special enough on the outside. I don't think that they were going to be dynamic enough in the passing game to deal with. I mean, the way in which we created a lot of the pressure and created a lot of the uncertainty, where he would pull the ball down and he would scramble and he was really contained. The same thing that just happened with the Chiefs,
Yeah, they all
and
look the
and
same.
and like the body of work the Eagles had this past season, like look, they beat Jordan Love twice. They beat Jaden Daniels twice. They beat I'm sorry, not Josh. They beat Patrick Mahomes once. They beat Lamar. They beat Joe Burrow. Like we beat dudes this year, right? So I don't want to take, like, they were that good. And the part that you making about the SEC, right? And the way we load the team, there's something else that comes with that, is that the SEC programs you're talking about, you're not talking about like Vanderbilt. You're not talking about like, I don't know, Tennessee now, not Tennessee years ago. You're talking about your Alabamas, your Georgias, teams that are accustomed to winning, players that are accustomed to winning, right? So when you bring Devontae Smith in here, he works, he expects. Landon Dickerson expects and works. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Jacoby Dean, Nolan Smith, Keely Ringo, all these dudes come in here and expect, and they work.
Yo, you know what's really fascinating about that comment? Can we go there? You know what's really fascinating about what you are saying right now?
I think I know
Because
where you're
there's
going.
also a stud on our team who's from the SEC, and he made some comments recently, and it makes you wonder about the expectation of winning in terms of his why.
Yeah,
And he wasn't at Alabama or
he's at Ole
Georgia.
Miss.
He was at Ole Miss.
Yeah,
And I was really shocked to hear AJ Brown's comment. I appreciated the honesty. I appreciated it in the sense that you don't, this is how you feel, and that's real. But we haven't even gotten to the parade yet.
yeah, you're already talking about what makes you excited, what is worth it
Right.
for you.
And I
Yes.
think this is something that you should have potentially communicated with someone who cares about you.
Yeah,
And when you put it out to the world, even before the parade, there are going to be those who don't care who are going to have a lot to say about it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so when you just made that statement about the expectation of winning and the sacrifice associated with it, it does ring in a way because you have a player who may not have approached. He said, I never won a championship.
yeah,
And so for him playing football, there was a different why.
yeah.
And he kind of also alluded to the fact that I'll read the statement, you know, alluded to the fact that, he says, I thought my hard work would be justified by winning it all. It wasn't,
Mm,
right? After a few days, I've had time to reflect on being a champion. I tried to feel how everyone made it seem to be a champion, and unfortunately, it was short lived. 2 days to be exact. LOL. I've never been a champion at the highest level before, but I thought my hard work would be justified by winning it all. It wasn't. My thrill for this game comes when I dominate. It's the hunt that does it for me. It's when the DBs drop, it's when the DB drops his head and surrenders because he can't F with me. The intense battles, early mornings, late night, sacrifices. I love putting smiles on people's faces. Don't get me wrong, but it just wasn't what I thought it would be.
right.
It's the journey that I love the most. Back to work. So that last comment, actually, I will say this much. That last comment puts it in a perspective that maybe I misread it initially, right? Well, maybe he's just saying it's the
The
work
back
for me.
the back to work is the part that you're saying
Yeah,
too.
like
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
work, not necessarily
The I dominate.
I didn't want to work this way for a championship, so that's unfulfilling, but more that championship or not, I love to play football, I love to work.
So the question becomes, because, and I don't remember what coach said it. Um, I don't remember what coach said it. Was it Parcells who had coined the phrase "the disease of me"? Right. So immediately after you win, immediately after you win. This is the state we're in. We're not even, 96 hours from the win. We're 72 hours from the win, right? And you're hearing, or we're left to interpret statements like that. Josh Sweat was quoted as saying that he thought he would be the MVP, right? And he very well may have been. He very well may have been. I mean, is he more of an MVP than Milton Williams, who had 2 sacks, strip, and a recovery, or Cooper DeJean, who had the pick and the return, right? Like, I don't know, but you're hearing these statements, and it's one of those things where you're not using the main thing as the main thing, right? And for all of those other guys we listed out front, the Smiths, the Carters, the Davises, the Dickerson. I keep forgetting, like, Jalen didn't go to Alabama, right, or Oklahoma, and he was successful, right? I
Who,
want to make sure.
Jalen? Oh,
Yeah, Jalen Hurts. I never
he
mentioned
did.
Jalen Hurts is in Alabama. I never
Yeah,
mentioned him when I think about SEC, but he was in the SEC, right?
as a
And
freshman,
right,
took
right,
him to the
right.
championship game.
And so I look at it and I think, like, all right, I'm hoping that AJ Brown is talking about, like, the back in the hunt or whatever it is, or back to the grind or whatever he's talking about. But it would be nice. It would be nice if these guys kind of realize, like, I'm in a good spot and I have a chance to do something greater than me right now. And I hope it is the work is what gets him off. I hope that's what it is. And it's not
Me
the
too.
is he, but the question really is going to become, Sam, do you think he's going to be content with, I don't know, catching 65 balls and being below Puka Nakua in terms of statistical output next year? Is he gonna be happy with, being, you know 8 touchdowns and 1,100 yards when he could be 13 and 14 touchdowns?
So, to your point, I think the question then becomes: did he put the new OC on notice?
Mm,
Right? Is that essentially what AJ Brown is doing? Saying, "Listen, I need to be part of this." Right? You brought in Saquon, and Saquon had a year of all years. Okay, so this was his turn. Now it's time to ride me through this thing because I feel that I can provide that kind of contribution. I want to see the DBs drop their head. I know the work I'm putting in,
right,
and I
right.
know the impact I can have from my position. They can't win, and so even now, so it's like, will Saquon be the decoy? Because you can't expect 2,000-yard seasons, right? At some point, let them load up like Kansas City did to stop Saquon, and so is next year the year where AJ kind of has that 1,400-yard catching year again. I, listen, I think the winning formula for the Philadelphia Eagles is Jalen Hurts passing 25 times or less. I don't think it's him passing 30 times or more,
Yeah, I know
or
you just
20,
asked about
26 times or more. I
you,
don't think that's the recipe.
you asked about AJ Brown, but your point about Jalen Hurts is something I don't want to let slide, though. The 17 and 25, or whatever his is, his numbers look
17 and 22.
of 22, excuse me. His numbers looked very consistent throughout the regular season and postseason, and then obviously in the Super Bowl. And the thing that makes Jalen, one of the things, not a thing, one of the things that makes Jalen so particularly special was when you are that efficient. It's not that he's making high efficiency, safe throws, it's the timing of his throws, right? Like, it's almost like saying all points aren't the same points, right? Like, he's got, like, that clutch kind of, like, winning time factor where it may not necessarily be the fourth quarter, but it's 3rd and 7, and you need to keep this drive going. You need to respond so that you can get the field flipped and not give the other team the ball with a good possession, right? You need the opportunity to go ahead and keep kind of the team. The defense was just out there for a long time. They've been out there after a couple drives. They need a rest. You need a 6-7 minute drive. He has that ability. That's it. So, like, the 17 of 22, you could be 17 and 22, and it could be great. It could be a game manager, but it could be dynamic in the way in which he delivers the 17 times that he completes a pass. That's what makes him so special. It's the throw to the sideline to AJ Brown, right? It's the quick out to Saquon to beat the blitz. It's Jahan Dotson down the field. Like, those are the moments that distinguish the 17 from 22 from, like, yo, he went 17 for 22 and was a Super Bowl MVP.
So not only is he making the 17 passes that will count the most, but he'll also use his legs in a way that he will give you over 50. I mean, he's already set the record in the NFL being the only quarterback to rush for 50 yards, and he's done it twice.
Yeah.
So he had 72 yards on the ground, and it
Breaking his
hurt
own
them.
record.
They were backbreakers. They
Yeah.
were third down conversions. And so he extends the drive. He just finds the way when to make the play that are just backbreaking plays to the
Yeah.
defense.
He was exceptional. He was exceptional. And I bring this all up to say is that, AJ Brown, in whatever his intent, if his intent was to, hey, elevate me going into the season, I think Jalen Hurts has the same kind of claim. I think Devontae Smith has the same kind of claim, right? Like, yo, can we see what we're doing here and the chance that we have? The Eagles I'm not calling they're going to go back and repeat because it's incredibly hard, but the Eagles are in a spot where they are deep, talented, and in a spot to make a run where the rest of the league has to catch up to not just their formula, but their talent as well. I saw Dak out there talking about like, yo, we play these dudes multiple times and we see the Commanders, whatever it is, and we give them hell, and we're right there. Dog, no, you're not. You don't know what your coach is going to do. You need another receiver. You need a whole offensive line. Like, AJ, you're in a good spot. All Sweat, you're in a good spot. Go get your money and then just sacrifice for the team.
So look, I know you don't want to go there, right? I know you don't. But I mean, to run it back, what do they need? Is it simply to retain the players that we currently have? Do we have to go big fish hunting? We know that you have a disgruntled player in on the Browns who is actively saying, "I want to leave Cleveland." Do we go after Miles? Do we let Sweat, walk for that? I mean, because he's a free agent too, correct?
Sweat is a free agent. Yep.
Right. So Milton Williams, do we think that there's someone who can come behind him that we have on the roster already? I mean, those are critical decisions. These players are trying to get the bag, and so I don't know what their motivation is at this point. I would think that the Eagles would prioritize Zach Bond. I would think that they would prioritize Mekhi Becton. Those two players, I think that they would make sure are back on the team. Milton Williams, I don't know if he's like a Hargrave situation where he's just going after so much money. Eagles know they can't really contend with what his number is going to be. And when it comes to who else was there?
Sweat.
Right, with Josh Sweat, do you think about just switching him out for Myles Garrett? Or do you work with Josh Sweat? Is Josh Sweat willing to work with you?
I think before you even get to the players, the you have to have the premise of like like Sirianni has created a culture where it's a team first. The team is greater than me, right? And so if any of these guys are like, I don't want someone who's going to disrupt that. I want dogs, but I want happy dogs, right? All right. I don't want puppies. I want happy dogs. And so these guys need to feel like if Milton Williams, who was a third round pick, he didn't get Jalen Carter money, he wasn't considered a Jalen Carter kind of prospect. Let's go and get the bag and can get the bag. Get it. I would love to have him here. I think he's been incredibly talented. I remember when he was drafted, how he was excited. I forget who the coordinator was that was not, right? And so it's a big deal. His contributions will always be remembered, but I need him to buy into the team. If you don't want to be here, then go do your absolute best. This is not a Saquon and the Giants situation because I would love you back, but I absolutely want to make sure that we keep the team first because there is an opportunity here. That's first. Two, I think, listen, certain players, I think Zach Bond should be here because he absolutely in this model, the drop off between what he was fifth on he was the fifth all defensive player of the year, right? Like, to who's going to replace that? But we could find maybe Steen to Becton is not a significant drop off, but who's going to replace that guy, right? I wouldn't want to do that. Sweat was on his way out the door beforehand. I could see them letting him go because he's going to want to try to get the bag.
Yeah.
But certain guys, when you look at the kind of the depth that they have, and then the performance of the guys who are free agents, along with the age, you're going to consider, all of those factors in the dynamic of what it is. I don't think they shortchange anybody. I think they have conversations with all of them, and if they can, they'll make it work. Otherwise, like, look, we're going to find a way to move forward. Brandon Graham's probably going to come off. Sweat, like I said, I think it's going to probably go. Bradbury, God bless him, he was still getting a check. He's going to be gone, right? So there'll be dudes who are going to go. There'll be dudes who are going to go. Howie Roseman, Howie season is going to start real soon, and I don't think it's going to be as hard as we might like to believe it's going to be.
Sorry about that. Well, listen, I'll say this much. The Eagles have become an attractive landing destination. So for the guys that they may lose, I can assure you there'll be free agents that are saying, listen, can I get an opportunity?
No question.
Just give me a chance.
No
Let me
question.
get I want in on this. I want to be a part of this. I'll take that hometown discount. You know,
No
like
question.
my motivation is I want to experience what that is, because these guys have played hard and long, and you know they you know I hope that after reading AJ's comment all the way through, that I understand it to be about the work and the grind. Some people just love the grind, right? And the accolades and the confetti that comes with it, it may not be as satisfying, you know, but knowing that your peers know that you're that bull is, you know, and so I think that they'll still relish in the fact that they're world champions, but I can also understand him saying that, feeling that it was a little anticlimactic, you know, like
I hope that's what it is. I really hope that's what it is. I mean,
and maybe listen, maybe the parade puts in a different perspective, right? Like maybe that experience in itself is like, oh, okay, yeah, I want this. This is, you know what I mean?
But when you're that talented, so let's give him the benefit of the doubt. But ultimately, the question still exists: do you think AJ Brown, based on his talent and his work and his production, has to believe that he is better than Terry McLaurin, or he's on par with your your Chases and your Jeffersons? He has to believe that because of his Tyreek Hill. All of those guys get mentioned as though they are clearly better than AJ Brown. AJ Brown's numbers don't necessarily match his ability. So going into 25 or the 25 season, do we really think that he would be content with being a middle of the road numbers guy, an immensely talented dude, meaning he'd have to sacrifice again for the betterment of the team, knowing what it was the previous season?
I think that he will, what he wants to do and how he's approaching it, I don't know. I guess if I can look at the question differently, obviously I think that winning is usually the thing, right? Like the main thing is the main thing. And the idea potentially that winning isn't enough when you know you can achieve the ultimate goal, then I think you got to have that upfront conversation and do what's best for you. I would be surprised if that's truly the mindset, to be honest, because one of the things Nick Sirianni has sold his players on, and even Jeffrey Lurie has echoed it, is you can't be great without the greatness of others.
That's right.
That's why this team is what it is. It's like, AJ, if you remove yourself, you're removing yourself from one of the all-time rosters, and you've validated it by getting to the Super Bowl twice in 3 years and winning one. So if you can win another one, like the whole world realizes you're sacrificing. But the organization is paying you. They're looking at all the salaries out there and say, okay, we'll pay you commensurately, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like you're taking a cut financially to play on this team. It just means that your production is going to be less because you're playing with other great players.
Right.
And so if you really want to be off of this and be just the guy and you're the show, there are many teams out there that will grab AJ Brown, and you'll just have AJ Brown numbers. You're not going to be playing in January.
Nah, man, I agree. We'll see what it is, man. I'm excited. I'm gonna still pretend to be in my little bubble until Friday, right? I'm still let that glow kind of wash over me, and then I'm gonna worry about all of the comments, all of the remarks after that. That's it.
What I'm hoping is that AJ is just talking out loud, like it's like a stream of thought. And whatever the response is to it, it's something that he can take and accept, knowing that he put that information out there. And he continues to be transparent with this though, right? Like, I hope he doesn't turtle up now in terms of continuing to communicate, because to me, like, you had to have known this would have garnered a response, right? Like you had to know that in a city like Philadelphia, you brought a championship to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So for you to make the statement that it's like, like, that's why I'm hoping that it really is about the grind for you. Like, that's what you're just married to. That works here. That works here.
Yeah.
But if it's more like the to pursue the championship isn't quite what my why is, and it's more about the fact that I can put smiles on faces, because that's more than just the work, right? Putting smiles on faces means someone is seeing you do it. So
Right.
it's talking about his production during the games as well. So to me, like, there's components of it that just communicates whoever the next OC is next year, you guys need to make sure that is figured out. He has to be a focal point because he's capable of it. And maybe we just look at it as it's his turn.
Yeah.
Now this is the AJ led Eagles. We had the Saquon championship, we have the AJ championship, then you have a Devontae championship.
But why? Why? Listen, if we get 3 championships, I'll rock with it. But we talked about earlier in the season, we've got a team that is built to just physically beat guys.
I know,
Right?
but only Jalen and Saquon were on Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe AJ's like, look, man, next year I want to make sure I get that seat.
listen, you know where he was at? He was spending the $100+ million contract that he was getting. He's fine.
He was tweeting. That's what he was doing.
He should have been fine.
No, he's. I think he's fine. Like I said, I think it's just gonna be. It's an interesting dynamic. I'll tell you this much: it goes to show the credit that Nick Sirianni should get in terms of keeping this team committed to the task. If this is coming out from your star wide receiver 2 days after the Super Bowl, then to me, it's evidence that he did a great job keeping them focused on a singular goal.
Oh, there's no question about it. And he doesn't get enough credit for it. He doesn't get enough credit for being both a leader, a manager, coach, and being able to kind of dictate both the tone and temperament of the team. For the longest time, we always kind of had heard that the Eagles, Jeffrey Lurie wanted to play a certain way. The Eagles were the antithesis of what we thought that looked like. They were not glitz and glamour. They were ground and pound. So the Eagles did all of that, and they kind of took on the no one likes us and we don't care vibe that Sirianni had. And so he was able to kind of imbue all of that in these dudes. And if now there are starting to be some cracks, I'm sure he's capable of addressing it. But I also think that, we saw on the sidelines in that game, let's keep going back to this point. In that game, AJ snaps out. I think the next pass was to AJ Brown.
It was two. So it was a fourth down call, third down call. Was it a fourth down call? I think it was a third down call where AJ went long, Jalen threw a back shoulder to one sideline. But so they were crossed up on the communication.
Yes.
Whose fault it was, we don't know. But they didn't get it right. We then punt the ball, and it was on the first play where Mahomes throws the pick. Right?
Oh, here's the crosser. Yep.
Right. So then we ran the ball once, and then the play after that was a crosser. So it's like 3 plays removed.
Yeah.
So it's like we were on offense, we punted, we got the ball back, and then 2 plays later, we get a touchdown. Like we run, so it was on 2nd and 9.
So you can cut it both ways, right? Like the crying baby gets fed, right? I hate to call him the baby, right? But that's he complains.
The squeaky wheel gets oil.
Oh, that's even better. I apologize. I should not call him the crying baby. The squeaky wheel, right? Gets oil. And then, or you can look at it and be like, look, Sirianni had the foresight to kind of manage the situation. Because when Devontae scored later in the game, AJ was right there dapping him up and celebrating with him. So, I don't know. I have every bit of confidence going from we have to think about this. They lost the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They come in, lose all of their coordinators. They have the start that they did, all of that turmoil. Then they completely crater. Then they get blown out against the Buccaneers. Off season, is Nick going to be back? What's his job going to be? 2-2. He's yelling and screaming at fans. They go into the bye week, and then they don't lose but 1 game since then. I gotta have faith in Nick, man. I gotta have faith in him.
And listen, even in the one game they lost after going 2-2, they only lost 1 game during the regular season. It was to Washington when Jalen Hurts could not finish the game.
Yeah,
he was up 7-0 and driving when he got injured.
Yeah,
he couldn't finish the game, and that's the only other game we lost in the regular season.
Nah, man, I believe in it. I just like I said, I just hope I'm gonna believe that the issues, the disease of me does not pervade or overwhelm the fact that we've got a team that is built on the greater sum of its parts.
I think this team owes it to itself to run it back.
They can.
You know,
But let
so
me ask you this
even
question.
Milt,
Let me
it's
ask you
like
this
Milt,
question.
even if you take a friendly short-term deal just to, I mean, granted, you're not this is your third round pick. So what am I talking about? Let me stop. Let me not even negotiate for you on wax. Like that's just crazy talk. So I apologize, brother. Do what you got to do. But just consider the opportunity of running it back as one of the more special teams that could potentially be remembered in history. Like the era of the Eagles that were just their stacked roster. They got to like 5 championship games, when 3 or 4 of them, it's like that team, they were just the bullies on the block, you
Yo,
know?
but like let's talk about it though. When you say run it back, so 3 Super Bowls in 8 years, right? Like
But this is a different team.
no, but it's the organization though, right? Because the
But
the the, the Patriots went through different. Like Tom Brady was the constant, right? But their defense changed completely multiple times, right? You had the Randy Mosses, and you had the Wes Welkers, then you had the Julian Edelmans, then you had the Gronkowskis, right? So like there were shifts, and Deion Branches was a thing at one point in time. So they had shifts in the personnel, obviously because of the length of the success. And I'm it feels strange to say it, but 3 Super Bowls in 8 years, 2 wins, right? Like one more appearance in the next 2 years. Like, or what are we talking about with the Eagles here? Is that a dynasty?
no, because it's not the same team. You
Keep in
you
mind,
can't you can't have a dynasty with just different coaches, different quarterbacks. Like you're making an argument for like an organizational
yes,
dynasty in a way
yes.
that we've never looked at dynasties that way before. It's always been about player coach when you think about
But why does it
dynasty.
have to be though? Right? Because dynasty, I think, is like a consistent level of success, like a high level of consistent success.
I-
Right?
Right, but that 8-year gap, I think the Eagles they might create their own category. To me, a dynasty still means something in terms of what the players did on the field. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're talking about different players, then I don't see that the same way. Like if the Chiefs were up to win their third championship, but it was a different coach and quarterback, it would technically be a three-peat, and then you look at the organization as a whole differently. But I think that there would be something that people acknowledge would be different. Okay, perfect point. Case in point, the championship that Jimmy Johnson didn't win, right? Was it Barry Switzer?
Yes.
Right? Like his title, it's like, yeah, you got it, but you know what I mean? Like you got it, but that's Jimmy's team is why you got it. That team couldn't
Mm.
lose, like as opposed to him getting the credit for the championship. So maybe that is kind of what you're describing, right? Like the Cowboys were just so good that it didn't matter who the coach was. And what you might be saying is that this organization has the knack of putting together such good rosters and leaders of men that like they can always like here's a team that can hit the reset button and still get right on your behind.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, in 2017, our only real holdovers I want to say our primary guys. You're looking at like your Brandon Grahams, you're looking at Lane Johnson, right? Those are as best I can recall immediately. Those
That's it.
were your guys, right? And then
Wait. Your kicker,
was
Jake.
Elliott the 17 kicker?
Yeah, remember who's a rookie? Because that was
Fair
a
enough.
rookie year when he
Okay.
hit the when he set the record against the Giants, and
Fair enough.
that was
That's
the
right. That's
beginning of
right.
our
That's right.
winning
That's right. He
streak.
hit that kick early in the season. You're right.
Yep,
Um, so and then you might even have like the long snapper, like Lovato or whatever it is,
I
right?
think you're right. Yep, those are the foursome right there.
So
There we
so
go.
okay. So that group of guys, but now we're transitioning where Brandon Graham is likely to retire. Lane Johnson, excuse me, combining names, is likely 1 season left, right? But that group has now seen 3 Super Bowls. And so, like, the consistency in terms of the organization, I think, is the point I'm talking about in terms of the standard of a potential dynasty. The players have obviously changed because of the length of time. But the Eagles are going to have kind of like the same fundamentals throughout. You're going to have a defensive offense. You're going to have a aggressive defensive line. You're going to have a stout, with Stoutland, by the way, offensive line. And you're going to have a special teams that is going to be reliable and consistent in its performance. And then everything else kind of fits around that. And that's who they've been. And that's who they're going to
Man,
continue to be.
if you could just hold on to Stoutland and Vic Fangio, like let those dudes just like be who they are in the have their own part of the building, and just like we got a straight program, man. Like
Well, you know
Stoutland
what?
University is Vic Fangio University. Like this is a real program. Like even Jalen Carter said this isn't college, but it feels like it. He's like it
Yeah.
feels like a program, and I
I,
think
I,
that's
I think
how.
I think they're those guys are going to actually dictate. I think they're going to have a lot to do with what we see free agency wise, right? Like if Fangio says, "I need Zach Bond back to be successful," Zach Bond will probably be back here, right? Same thing
Yeah,
with Makai Becton.
but Vic don't got to say that for that to be obvious.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. But I think if he does say it, I think it only makes the point. No, you're right. He doesn't have to say it.
I mean, to me, he said it to get him there.
Well, we didn't know what he was going to be. I don't think anybody saw this. Zach Bond was not this player anywhere close to it before he came to the Eagles.
Hey, someone had to see something to change his position.
Yeah. I think you know who I think that someone was. I think that someone was actually Sirianni. I think
You think so?
Fangio actually gave Sirianni credit because Zach Bond was more considered an edge rusher coming here, right? And Fangio had given Sirianni credit because they were like, "Yo, let's move him off the ball."
Sirianni said, "Let's move him off the ball."
That was him. Now, I'm not saying he said bring him here. I'm saying positionally, let's have him do something different.
Ah, I see what you're saying. I got you. I got you. I got you.
So
You
I don't
brought him
know.
here, but as I'm observing the game and practices, etc.,
Right.
it's like, hey, you want to try to use him over there, see what he can do?
Yes,
I think he
exactly.
might be able to. His range, man, like his ability to dissect, diagnose, and react quickly, and his durability. You know, like he stayed upright for most of the year. So
Man,
to me,
listen.
I think he's a slam dunk in terms of who you bring back. And like I said, they'll make the money work because you're just gonna do it in the signing bonuses. He already has the cheat code. Howie already has the cheat code for this. This is just up to
Howie.
ownership deciding whether or not they're just gonna pay the guys outright, regardless of the cap. Like they don't have to go over their cap to build this roster. And that's
No,
what
no.
and the reason the Eagles have, so for the rest of the teams out there, the reason the Eagles have a roster that your team doesn't is because we're willing to pay the players.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
We're willing to pay them outside of the cap. Your teams aren't. They are limiting themselves to the cap. And so that's why these teams look different.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
paying for the championships. We're the Alabama. We're the Georgia. We're paying the guys. We're paying them. This is old school. We're paying them. We're giving them a duffel bag. School's over here, but take this first. Now let's talk. Like that. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these guys are sacrificing to win because they can go out there, get a bag on their own, and also be featured. They can be highlighted.
That for me, I think one thing that's consistent, it is the sacrifice. That's it. That's it. And I think that's where we started, and that's kind of where we are right now. Like it's the sacrifice. In order to win, what are you willing to sacrifice? That's really what it comes
What do
down
you need
to.
to run it back? Sacrifice.
That's it.
That's it, brother. Hey, listen, man. I think honestly, I would like to keep this show just on our Super Bowl champs, quite frankly.
There's nobody else
There's nobody else
about.
to worry about. We're not even gonna, you know what I mean, get into any muddy waters. We're nice and clean. You know what I mean? So I think, listen, to run it back, you got to sacrifice. So we are sacrificing the others right now to make sure that the Eagles get their flowers for the show. Your 2024 season, right? So it's the 2024 NFL champs.
Yes.
Your Philadelphia world champs, the Philadelphia Eagles. And to be able to do it in a form of redemption, not only do you dismantle a dynasty, but you get your lick back. And boy, oh boy, not only do you get your lick back, you get your lick back in a way where I don't think they want their lick back. I don't think they want their lick back.
I think Kansas City, like the next time we see the Chiefs, I think they are fundamentally different. I think Travis Kelce looked like a defeated man. I think they are probably going to go out and invest heavily in offensive and defensive line. I would not be surprised if we saw a number one receiver right? So a guy like Devontae Adams, God forbid, or someone out there like that. Keep in mind, because they had a guy early in the season, Rasheed Rice. Rasheed Rice was getting busy, right, for the Chiefs. He had an ACL injury. They lost him for the
Mm,
season. And then I think he has some legal trouble that may actually keep him off the season for off the field for next season as
mm,
well. So I think they're going to look at what they can do to support Mahomes, because when you've got a dude like that, you do not rest. You don't rest, and they won't. They won't. So,
yeah.
and the irony is in all of this that we actually benefit. I remember the days when we used to lament Andy Reid, run the ball. And even though we were absolutely stoning Pacheco and Hunt or whomever, like he didn't even give
We
like,
were getting stoned.
well,
Saquon averaged 2 yards a carry, but he
but
still had 25 of them.
he still had 25, and he was getting like short passes or whatever it was. So he still had close to 30 touches, if not more. So that said, I remember the days where Andy Reid was like, yo, we've got to give these guys a chance to think about tackling a dude before they just go get our quarterback. It was kind of nice to be on the other end of it.
It was nice to be on the other end, man, where you're, yo, we they looked bewildered on the other sideline, man. Like you saw no hope in any of their eyes, from Spags to Andy Reid to the players. It was just a hopeless situation, and I just
Tim, I will
never
tell you,
imagined that was what I would be watching for a Super Bowl.
Cats started leaving the game. So Cats started, like, as expensive as those tickets were, Cats started leaving the game after the 24-0. Third quarter, Chiefs fans started, now, not in mass. There was a good number of them still there, right? But they were like, all right, man, I'm out. Like, I'm going to go get a bidet and a coffee. I'm done.
Because here's the thing, and we'll be wrapping up, folks. But here's the reason why I would expect that to happen, because the eye test tells you there's no way we're in this game.
What point
When
did
was
you
that?
what point did you believe it was over? What point did you believe it was over?
So that's funny, because there's a meme that's going around in terms of like Eagles anxiety, because it's like with this team, they're really never out of it with the Chiefs.
Right.
Um, honestly, I gotta hate to say it, the bomb,
The bottom?
the bomb to
Oh, the
Devontae,
bomb, the bomb, the
the
bomb.
bomb.
So when it made it like
Like,
34-0.
yeah, like when I heard that they hadn't passed the 50 yet, and they were on their 46. He throws the 4-yard pass, Devontae Adams, right?
Devontae Smith.
Devontae
Oh,
Maddox,
Avante Maddox. Yes, yes,
Avante
yes, yes.
Maddox
Yes, Avante
deflects
Maddox.
it.
Yes.
That was going to be the first time that they crossed the 50. At that point in the game, they still had yet to have a play on that side of the field. So it was more of like that deflection is when I felt like they can't do nothing.
Mm.
That's what I knew. So it's 27-0 at that point. The very next play, they score a touchdown. So at that point, it's just like, all right. What I just felt in my gut now is confirmed, because we're just popped you on top of the head after you still can't get past the 50-yard line.
Yeah. Yeah. I was probably around that same time too, because at some point, like, despite my anxiety, I started counting possessions. I was like, yo, the Eagles can only give the ball back so many times. Like, we should be good to go from here.
Well, when I was at Stacy, one of the guys there, he was saying, "I don't know, it's over," and they're like, "No, he can't stop." It's like it's not. They're not going to get the ball enough times. Like, they're just not. They're not going to get the ball enough times. Even if they go 3 and out, they can only stop 1 3 and out 3 times with timeouts. The rest of the time, like, we're just going to be sitting on the ball, even if it's a 3 and out. So, yeah. I mean, it became a numbers game quickly, and for him to get the Gatorade bath prior to the 2-minute warning, just goes to show that once what the lady was singing, she was singing. She was singing.
Speaking of Sirianni, real quick, he is going to. I know there are going to be cameras trained on him. He is going to be. If there is ever a petty "I told you so," yo, you got this dude out here quoting Bobby Brown. Like, this dude is going to be on 10 on Friday. It's going to be. I've never heard a white person quote Bobby Brown before, yo.
I can't wait.
It's going to be
it was
crazy.
So appropriate. But it's funny because Jalen played that earlier, either last year or this year. I think it was last year. Who knows? Maybe been this year. But Nick gets it. He gets it. And then he shows up to the press conference wearing A.J. Brown's high school jersey, the next morning. So like I said, he's a Philadelphia coach. It's very obvious to me. Even the banter he had with the fan, when the fan comes out and says, "Listen, I loved it. It was the best day of my life." Like, because think about it, he gets a chance to go back and forth with the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. It was all in fun. It's like they're taking it out of the context. So to me, he really didn't do anything wrong. You know, like if he had done something wrong, it's like, hey man, shame on you. But he didn't. And that's you realize, like, he, you know what I mean? Like, let him just let him live.
Let him
You
live.
know, and I think from here on out, he's got the keys, bro.
Well, he's got the keys. He deserves it. He's got the Super Bowl. He deserves a contract. So, cheers to the victors, man.
Cheers to the victors. And with that, folks, we hope you enjoyed the show. Again, please hit the like button on your way out, or as you are watching our program, hit the notification and also subscribe. That way you'll know when we are airing next. Until next time, folks, peace.